Welcome back live here on In Focus with a look at your leading stories now beyond our borders. President Cyril Ramaphosa has told fellow SADC leaders that the violent extremism in the north of Mozambique cannot be allowed to continue without a proportionate response. He was opening the Extraordinary Troika Summit in Lilongwe, Malawi, being held to review the Southern African Development Community military mission to combat terrorism in Mozambique. This almost 6 months after the Extraordinary SADC Summit, which approved the deployment of its mission in Mozambique. Joining us now to review the meeting's significance at this time is the Director at the Center for Democracy and Development, Professor Adriano Nuvunga. Prof, good evening and thank you very much for your time and joining us tonight here on In Focus. How important is this meeting that is taking place now with the heads of states? Yesterday, it was, of course, the Troika Summit.
Good evening. It was indeed a very important meeting, and as we have discussed last week, we are expecting SADC to assess the progress and decide to extend the mandate of SAMIM and hopefully expand it. This time, they have decided to extend the mission, commended those countries that have contributed with personnel, with equipment, and also with logistics, and have decided to expand the mission, of course, with the corresponding budgetary implications. This is an important decision in our view, because it shows in concrete terms the commitment of SADC in supporting the efforts of Mozambique to fighting violent extremists in northern Mozambique.
Yeah. Does it signal a clear message that they are not just paying lip service, but they are actually now taking seriously the question of extremism and terrorism within the region?
Indeed. There is a lot more to be done. There is a lot more to be done. We would wanted to see all SADC countries in one voice, not only few. We wanted all to see all SADC countries in one voice. We hope to see that in the near future. But those who have committed, they are really making it clear that SADC is committed to supporting its member states in fighting violent extremists. This is important. With this side, in relation to this summit, they have also decided to support Mozambique in its call for an international conference for the rebuilding and reconstruction of northern Cabo Delgado. This is important. However, we would have wanted to hear SADC also making it clear that dialogue is important. Because dialogue, in our view, it will help tackle most of the aspects that enable the violent extremism in northern Mozambique to take so long, but also to expand to other parties, the other parts of the country, including the issue of how to tackle recruitment. Why violent extremists are successful in recruiting young people, how to address that issue.
Yeah. Number
2 is the issue of intelligence. We would have wanted to hear more on this aspect, and seeing the SADC member states saying that their back capitals will not be used by violent extremists to make transactions, to communicate, and to wire, including finance, etc., to support that. But also to the issue of community-driven sort of inclusive participation, including the IDPs in the humanitarian aspect. We would have wanted to hear the SADC also taking this aspect in the umbrella of dialogue, targeting communities and different stakeholders that are relevant to this conflict, given the root causes that have enabled it to expand it where it is today.
How do you think dialogue in particular? I mean, many would say you're probably correct on the question of intelligence to improve public security law and order in affected areas, but how do you think dialogue would be able to restore security and create a secure environment?
Dialogue is important. In those type of conflicts, when the social trust and the social cohesion, it has been destroyed, not only by the conflict, but by some of the driving root causes of the conflict, including elite-centric extractivism, the lack of development, lack of participation. Cabo Delgado is such a rich province, but the level of poverty is shocking. And the victims of lack of development, they are disenfranchised, they're out there, they are vulnerable to be recruited. And today they're IDPs. So those people, they have to move from being victims to being actors of security in Cabo Delgado. So you need a community-centric security strategy, and you peg that in the language of dialogue. You have to understand the problem also from the perspective of these communities who are victims of the situation.
Are you so concerned about the security and the safety of non-combatants?
Absolutely, absolutely. Each and every time that officials, they come up, including Samin, they come up and say they have destroyed the violent extremist bases, they have destroyed, they have killed. We have not yet heard them saying we have enabled X number of non-combatants to come out. And what treatment is being given to those people? Those people, they have to be looked at, they have to be given corridors to come out, particularly those who are really willing to do so, being looked at as victims and being treated in the overall framework of humanitarian treatment, and allow them to speak out their minds. What have they seen? And what that can give insights as to who these people really are. At the moment, here and there, they say these are the leaders of these, etc. But you want to understand a bit more the intelligence behind it. We have not yet seen that. So it is important that SADC takes it serious, the issue of creating corridors for the non-combatants to come out. A response, each military response, it adheres to international standards when it allows non-combatants to have avenues to come out and also participate and give their perspective of what's happening.
Is there space for accountability being created for the deployed troops there and the work that they are doing? Are you concerned about that?
Yes, we are concerned. We are concerned because it is not only Samin. There is another force, the RDF, Rwandese Defense Force, and we would have wanted the overall framework where there is human rights accountability. But that is only possible when there is coordination between different deployments. We have not yet seen much there. If you take the example that this summit was postponed, and in those days that was supposed to take place, a meeting in Kigali was happening between Mozambique and Rwandese, and then now SADC. So this also tells you a bit of what is happening in terms of coordination, which makes it difficult for humanitarian actors to have a framework to meaningfully participate in terms of monitoring of what is the situation in terms of human rights accountability.
Professor Adriano Nuvunga, appreciate your time and thank you very much for joining us. Executive Director there for the Center for Democracy and Development.